I think we're ready to embark on our educational journey together. So, I think we could start by taking insights on some of the mega trends.
Yeah, absolutely. When I first heard this word megatrends, I had no idea what it means, and some of you might be in the same position as I was, so I will explain what it is. Megatrends encompass long-term global shifts that influence our society, economy, and culture. They're like very powerful waves, and understanding them is crucial for our future.
Yes, and in the next segments, what we want to do is to truly look at the world through the eyes of the young people and understand what opportunities and challenges lie in scouting and in our world. So, with that in mind, let's welcome our speakers. We have two joining us online, and Zakaria Bahouch from Algeria here with us. Welcome, Zakaria.
Yeah, how are you? Happy to see you again, man.
Welcome,
How are you?
welcome.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So we're really glad to have you here on stage. We can finally sit.
The pleasure is all mine. Yeah, thank you.
We are very nice SDGs.
Oh, interesting.
I love them. So we have some questions prepared for you. And the first one I wanted to hear from you is, what specific environmental challenges in your region resonate the most with local youth?
Thank you, Flor. Thank you, Pierre. Thank you very much for having me here. I think the region is facing different sustainable and environmental challenges, such as water scarcity, the changing landscape of urbanization, air pollution, climate change, etc. And I think this is well known in different regions as well. But I really want to address the challenges of environment from different perspectives. I just wrote some notes here. From society level, I think there is a limited awareness about the environmental concepts among some scout leaders, some educators, some policymakers. When you talk from curriculum perspective, the question is, do they really correspond to environmental global needs and young people needs as well? This is a question. We do have SDGs platform, we do have e-learning, we are training consultants, we have documents, but the question is, what is the adopted at grassroots level? Because when you evaluate the grassroots level adoption. And when you adopt a new thing, it takes time. It's a long process. Structure, energy, governance. So this is one of the challenges as well. Geopolitically speaking, you know exactly the situation now in the region. And I think stability, security raise questions about the priority given to environmental concerns. And this is exactly what I was going to do. From infrastructure level or mindset level, the question is, I think we have to look at the legislative laws now, environmental laws, and we have to see exactly the real participation of young people. Do we really have environment for young people? Open questions.
Very good.
Yeah, talking about the environment, this is my next question about sustainability. Yeah. We're the forum on educational methods, and the question that we have is, what are the innovative methods that you think that we could have in the Arab region to make education to sustainable developments interactive, more relevant, in the context of the environmental and the sustainability conditions that you have in the Arab region?
Interesting. Well, Pierre, I worked in some Arab countries before moving to Geneva. I worked in academic think tanks and academic centers. I think the partnership with academic centers is very essential and important for scouting. Think tanks give you the content, country statistics, the needs from environmental perspectives, but they are not given, technicalities. I think as scouts, we can think to collaborate and partner with technical centers to cover our capacity. I think this will help us. Another thing which is a trend now in the region is the entrepreneurship, creating startups and helping scout leaders in the region. The third thing, the media should play its role. We have really good practices and examples in Algeria and Egypt and other countries, actually. So this is our work, actually, to see different platforms for young people with attractive content. As well as I have, I think, WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization in Geneva, they have a great platform, which is Green Technologies platform. We do have SDGs platform, but we want it more interactive. Before I finish, I'm sorry for being late, I think the message is clear. I think young people should be part of the environmental and development agendas. And not only being part, implement it, and hold all parties accountable for their responsibilities. And this is a message, I think, for WASM to invest more on youth in different regions. And that would be my pleasure to help if you need anything from my side. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you very much, Zakaria. I very much retain all you say about the partnerships and everything that can be brought and discussed with the partners around young people. And there's a lot of people ready to support the efforts of young people. Well, now we are going to Mexico. Welcome Paulina Acosta with this statement on leadership and opportunities for young people.
Hi, Scouts. Are you having fun in Paris? My name is Paulina Acosta. I'm a rover from Mexico, and I'm a graphic design student. In the world of youth leadership, let's talk about some challenges we face. In this rapidly changing world, where can we, young people, find support and empowerment to lead and create positive impacts in our communities? Many of us often find ourselves without the opportunities to truly engage and voice our opinions on matters that deeply concern us. Whether it's societal issues or community decisions, our chance to contribute feels limited. Moreover, the struggle to initiate and lead impactful projects within our communities stems from the unclear path to leadership, hindering our desire to start these projects. And if that's not enough, there's this feeling of self-doubt where we question our own competencies when it comes to leading others. So, how can the Scout movement support these aspirations for leadership and active participation? Fostering leadership skills, building confidence, and encouraging active participation is crucial for youth empowerment. It's about providing the tools and support we need to step forward and start taking on leadership roles and make a positive impact. We possess the potential to be change makers, and the Scout movement provides us with the necessary tools and support to turn this potential into a reality. Let's explore these opportunities and create a better world.
Thank you so much, Paulina. Yeah. Listening to her, I have to be honest here, gives me a little bit of goosebumps. I really resonate with her when she talks about self-confidence, and scouting for me has been, it has really, really helped me on that. Thank you, Paulina, for those incredible insights. We will now travel all the way to Uganda because Habib has something to share with us about education development, and he will also join us in a video.
Hello everyone, my name is Semwanga Habib and I'm from Uganda, and I'm supposed to present on one of the 5 themes, and the theme that I'm presenting about is education for sustainable development. And I have 2 questions to answer about this. The first question is how education impacts on the youth in my country, Uganda, and the second one is how we can improve on the education system. So the very first question is how education affects the youth in Uganda. There are both positives and negatives. On the positive side, the education enlightens the youth from ignorance. Many youth are ignorant about our nation, and education helps them to know more about our nation. And the second point is that it gives them connections. The more people you know, the better you are connected to the world, and the higher probability of you getting employed. However, there is a very negative impact, and that is education in our country is not up to date to the usual standards of the modern world, so it keeps us in the back edge. And the second question was, how can we get more youth involved in the education system? Let me start off by saying over 78% of the youth in Uganda have attended this education system, and 22 have dropped out, while 10% have never attended this education. How can we get more involved? By simply guiding them through mentorship. That's a very good point. And the second point is that by making the system more practical than before, that it was, we'll get more people involved in it. And my very last point is that by increasing the job opportunities, this motivates the youth to get more involved into the education system. Thank you.
Asante sana, Habib. What's your take for?
Absolutely. I think the indicators he just gave, those are really call to actions that we need to invest in education. And I think just this vision on Uganda makes me reflect a lot in my own local reality for me, like in Argentina. I hope it does the same to all of you. So thank you, Habib, for sharing all of those thoughts through a video.
Thank you very much all.
Thank you.
Shukran.
Shukran. Merci beaucoup.
And it was a pleasure to have you on
Thank you so
stage,
much.
Zakaria.
Appreciate it. Thank
And
you, guys.
well, thank you very much also to Habib and Paulina. Oh, yes. Use and technology. So now I think we've got the foundations, we've got the mega trends, and we've got some already inspiration. We've been shaked a bit for this morning. And thanks, we're going to have, during these next days, a lot of testimonies telling where we are and where the young people are when it comes to the current challenges. I think we can move on, Flor.
Absolutely. Who's ready to talk about education? No. That wasn't loud enough. Who's ready to talk about education? This first panel we have is the impact on youth in a rapidly changing world. We have 3 esteemed speakers with us today, and we'll be discussing the profound impact of evolving landscapes in education, work, economic growth, and the digital realm on today's youth.
Thank you, Flor. The thing is, this is what we really want to achieve today. We want to gain valuable insight. We want to come back to our houses with a lot of content, perspective, recommendations, and leverages to act as educators toward the new generations. So, to dive in this next session, I'm happy to call on stage the moderator, Megan Pearson, Vice Chair of the Inter-American Scout Region.
Thank you, Pierre, and thank you, Flor. Also, thank you, Scouts, for sharing your stories. Hi there. My name is Megan Pearson, and I am Vice Chair of the Inter-American Scout Committee. I am honored to be moderating the first panel discussion for this incredible weekend. This session is focused on understanding the big issues, situations, and trends impacting young people, so that organizations and movements, such as Scouting, can be placed to respond to these unique challenges. During the research phase of developing the next strategy for Scouting, we identified 6 megatrends affecting the world and future generations. For a review, these include climate impact and resources stress, demographics and social change, ubiquitous technology, economy, inequality, and labor shift, rapid urbanization, and interconnected politics and new forms of government. During this session, we are going to focus on education, economy, and technology. And in later plenary sessions, you will be exploring the other trends. Reflecting on my own experience as a chemical engineer in the energy industry, I have seen firsthand how rapidly our technical environment is evolving and the challenges in keeping our education system up to date to prepare young people for the work that needs to be done. An especially interesting topic that I have explored while being a full-time traveler this year is how to harness the brain power and skills in emerging economies. And as a Scout, I'm excited to be here discussing that with all of you this weekend. Building on the powerful testimonies we just heard, I think it's fair to say that the challenges our generation face have never been more complicated and profound. Now, let's dive deeper into the impacts on youth in the spaces of education, work, economic growth, and the digital revolution. To get us started, I would like to welcome 3 distinguished guests. His Excellency João Costa, Minister of Education of Portugal, Sarah Rita Catan, Vice Chairperson of the World Scout Committee, and Simone Ravoli, Board Member of the Learning Economy Foundation. What a warm welcome, and thank you so much for joining us here in Paris for our World Scout Education Congress. Before we jump into the quick-fire panel discussion, I would like to start with our distinguished guest and representative from the Portuguese government to share his thoughts and pitch his perspective on the biggest and most impactful trends impacting youth and the role Scouting can play in helping overcome them. Minister, you have 2 minutes, and I'll be timing you.
Okay, thank you very much for the invitation to be here. For those who don't know me, before being a minister and still being a minister, I'm a scout as well for 42 years now. And, and so it's a double pleasure to be here. So now my 2 minutes will start. So when we talk about these megatrends and the challenges that we are facing and discussing in education across the world, it's interesting to see that although in different scales, because in some countries we are still discussing very basic access to education, in others we are at more advanced levels, the topics are the same. And the main topics that we're discussing are about the avalanche of information that we live in, and information does not mean knowledge. There's a comedian in Portugal who says, information is to know that tomato is a fruit, knowledge is not put it in the fruit salad. And so this navigation through information requires new skills, critical thinking, creative thinking, the ability to judge and evaluate on the basis of your knowledge. Then we have also the challenge of what we call democratic downsliding. We see emerging new radicalisms, populisms, and we know that a populism can be characterized by providing a simple answer to a complex question, by trying to explain the world in the 140 characters of Twitter. And we know that education is the role for exploring complexity. Also, the other challenge that will be discussed in the other panels, and all the new skills that are required from us. Typically, a good student is someone very quiet, who knows all the answers, and is very competitive. But what the world requires is citizens who are not quiet. They are active, they know how to ask questions rather than provide answers, and they are not competitive. They work in teams. Now, when we see the role of Scouting, the role of non-formal education movements, we see all of this being old news. We were doing climate action education when I was a child. We were learning to live together and grow together in our little groups. We're developing new skills. I learned cooking in the Scouting movement, and I'm a very good cook. And so we see that there is a complementary relation, but there is also a lot to be learned. Many of the things that we are discussing these days in formal education, like youth empowerment, giving students a voice, is something that we started in 1997.
Thank you so much, Minister, for your thoughts. You provided us an important set of challenges to consider as we go through this weekend and as we go through this panel. Sarah Rita, I would like to start with you. As a lifelong scout and vice chair of our movement, reflecting on the challenges set out by our youth members and by the minister, can you share how you think Scouting's blend of non-formal education and youth-led action has positively impacted the lives of young individuals, promoting skills such as leadership, resilience, and inclusivity? How can we further integrate these valuable lessons into broader educational frameworks?
Thank you for the question, and hi, everyone. So basically, I mean, if we think of Scouting, it really prepares young people for lifelong challenges and for themselves to become really able to face the challenges and overcome them. And what is key to this is really non-formal education. And non-formal education today prepares people on the personal level as much on the social level. And that's what was defined also in the Rio Declaration in the last World Non-Formal Education Congress. And if we look at Scouting itself, it prepares people to be as much as to do. And so we learn actually to be people that are active, that can do things in life, that can actually have an attitude for life, which is very much based on the values that we're centered around. At the same time, we learn how to learn and how to be able to do things and be able to actually work properly. If we look at the trends today, we have a lot of changes in the work environment, a lot of challenges in the skills that are needed for the work environment, and a lot of also challenges in the way that we see digital education and access to education, which is not present everywhere. Although we are actually looking at 1.4 billion people being connected as devices in the future, we have only 60% of people that have access to digital devices and internet. So as scouting, we're preparing young people to become actually able to address those challenges, to know how to learn and how to actually, around the values that they have, still have a compass where they know how to decide, but we're not telling them what to decide on. We're letting them become their own people in terms of decisions, in terms of trends, in terms of them setting their own objectives to see where they want to be, how do they shape the future that they want to be at, and what kind of future they want to create themselves. That would bring them really to be owners of their own responsibility and responsible of their own decisions and of their own future in the future eventually. So it's really important that we keep young people agents of their own development and give them the chance to voice their concerns and to decide what are the challenges and change along the way throughout their lives what they would like to tackle themselves, whether it's sustainability, inclusivity, or resilience.
Thank you so much, Sarah Rita. And now we're going to transition a little bit to talk about how governments can bring in what you were discussing for the challenges. So Minister João Costa, I'm going to turn back to you as Minister of Education in Portugal. And also given your background in scouting, what more do you think governments and policymakers can be doing to elevate the value and recognition of non-formal education on the global stage? How can movements such as Scouting contribute more effectively to this important conversation and tackle the issues impacting young people?
Well, the first thing is to be humble enough to be open to learn from non-formal education when we are designing, in particular, curriculum policies. Again, all around the world, we are discussing matters that are very, very ancient in non-formal organizations, education organizations, like problem-based learning, learning by project, learning by doing. This is old news for us in the Scouts, but this is something that is being very actively discussed in formal education systems. Why? Because we know, like you were saying, that we learn better when we experiment, we learn better when we feel what we are doing. We know that most barriers in access to education for many youngsters and children do not have to do with learning disabilities or impairments. They have to do with lack of social emotional skills, with social barriers, with low self-esteem. And we know that all of this can be developed very, very actively and effectively in non-formal education movements. So we have to, as I said, be humble and be able to learn from what they do. For instance, in Portugal, we started the student voice movement. And a friend of mine called me and said, "Are you turning the formal education system into a Scout movement? Ask the boys, is that what you're doing?" And I said, "Yes, why not? They have a voice. They have a voice. They are better engaged in learning when they participate. So yes, I'm learning from my real life because I will still be a Scout after being a minister." So that's one thing. The other thing is to know that there is no effective education if the school works by itself, if the school does not relate with the community. Students come to school in the morning, they leave in the afternoon, but afterwards they go to their neighborhood, to their family, and we know that one of the biggest challenges in education is to promote equity through education. And we cannot talk about equity if we don't know what the students do outside school.
Thank you, Minister.
Just to finish, so they can, we have to know in the education systems what the others are doing to the children so that we can communicate and recognize in the diplomas of the students what they do extra school.
Absolutely. Thank you, Minister. It's great to hear that formal education is pulling some components of what we do in non-formal education. But I know there's a lot that we still have to learn in non-formal education, and especially during the technology revolution. So I wanted to hear from Simone, as a leader in ed tech, what are the challenges and impact on young people of the widespread use of technology?
Thank you. Well, it's in a way very simple. I think we have to use a lot of human intelligence, actually humble intelligence, as the minister said, to balance some of the unintended consequences of the digital transformation of society and scouting. And also be able to thrive in a world that is more and more based on a new pattern of complementary opposites. And I'd like to call out a couple of them. The first one is connectivity and connectedness. You know, while we try to leave no one behind for an equitable future and bridge the digital divide, we're also generating addiction to screen time, and with that, loneliness. And so the more we are connected, the more we are disengaged. So that is one of the first complementary opposites that I'd like to call out. UNESCO, in referring to the COVID effect on education, called for a tragedy of edtech. You know, by not being able to go anywhere, we were able to be everywhere at the same time. And yet that level of connectedness did not resolve into positive outcomes. The other complementary opposite pattern that I'd like to call out is trust and truth. There is an issue in trying to reach sustainable development goals that we are kind of far from them. And technology seems now to come to us with this fascinating, creative, generative power. That poses a challenge because as we try to build trust from recognition, we no longer know what's true or what's not true. So to kind of line up going beyond sustainable development goals and meeting them into generative ones, which might come with some of those challenges of not being able to know what's true or not, what is trustworthy or not. I think the challenge is to go beyond that and to go into regenerative mode. So how might we meet those sustainable development goals, avoiding some of the challenges of generative AI and the challenge of keeping that technological advancement aligned with human principles into a regenerative phase. So I guess, could we maybe look at regenerative development goals in the future?
Well, thank you. I appreciate the challenge. Thank you. So bringing the technical aspect into it, I'm going to turn back to our minister here. Given that scouting and like-minded youth-led and youth-focused organizations' global push to recognize the value of non-formal education, how can national education systems collaborate with non-formal education initiatives like scouting to create a more holistic and adaptive approach to learning? What steps can be taken to bridge the gap between formal and non-formal education for the benefit of young people worldwide?
Well, I think it's all about partnership. It's about letting the schools be open to non-formal education movements, to stimulate the participation of students in all kinds of activities extra school. We know that there is, when we're talking about equity, sometimes we are talking about those who have access to some activities and those that don't, not because they are to be paid, but because the families don't have the knowledge to know that there is a good benefit in participating in non-formal education activities. So there has to be these bridges that are built between school and between non-formal education organizations. The other thing is recognition. In Portugal, we developed what we call a youth pass that is linked to the school diploma. So you can click and know what were the non-formal activities that someone who has this school diploma has participated in. And that's a way of formally recognizing what we're doing. And then the word you mentioned, the holistic approach to education, is very, very important. We know that these days, knowledge and the big topics, the big themes that we are discussing in the world are not accommodated in little drawers. If we want to discuss climate change, if we want to discuss our relation with technology, if we want to discuss how we navigate through the world of fake news, of manipulation, through whatever appears in our screen, we need these holistic approaches in which you are discussing geography, sciences, language, philosophy, together with citizenship education, together with what happens outside of school, together with the development of social-emotional skills. Otherwise, you fail. You fail in education. Then the final point is we need to also preserve the essence of some of our non-formal organizations. When I do Leader Scout training, I always say our biggest danger is if we become parallel schools. The essence of what we do is camping, is going in the nature, is to do those things that we do when there is no power or signal. And we need that. We need that because we need more and more to foster the ability to create, to wonder, to be amazed at the simple things, to look at nature and connect with the real interest and real passion with the very essential things of what makes us human.
Thank you, Minister. And I look forward to how we, in Scouting, in our NSOs, can bridge between being a collaborative environment with formal education, not duplicative, not separate, but really a true collaboration, how we can work together. Going to turn back to Sarah Rita for some questions regarding I'm going to turn back to you on building on the reflections of the other speakers and to hear a little bit more of that side of success stories. If you could share some examples of where you think the movement has been successful in combating the trends and issues young people face.
Sure. So basically, I mean, really, it's really important to build on this complementarity between non-formal education and Scouting and schools. And what we do, as you said before, it's really also having this value system that is inserted in people and making them really responsible of their own development. And if we look, for example, at some projects and some initiatives that we have across the world, whether it's, for example, Ticket to Life or what we're doing at national and local level to support Scouting in places where we have underprivileged people that are not able actually to have access to education, we can see how Scouting really provides a platform, a structured approach with a Scout method, with a way of learning that is already very clear and decisive for people. But at the same time, it gives the opportunity for young people to develop themselves as self-fulfilled individuals. And this development also leads to letting them become active citizens eventually. And that's done by the accompaniment of adults that are supporting a lot young people that come from areas where they do not have access to education to take the Scouting experience, but at the same time link them to educational institutions or places where they can continue their own development and develop professionally as well. Another example is also Skills for Life, where we're developing now an initiative around this as well, but it's happening already in our youth programs, where young people learn critical thinking and problem solving and how to digital literacy and how to use actually the tools around us to become able to really face the challenges of the world, but also to develop and become really professionally more skilled than usual. And the last one I would like to highlight is this contribution to the SDGs, where we have 57 million people that are actually contributing actively as a mobilized group to really work on the SDGs, on all the SDGs. And when we look at this, I mean, we can see the impact of Scouting in developing their skills, the competencies of the 21st century, whether it's the attitude, the knowledge, or the know-how itself and the skills, but also they're actually civically engaged in addressing those challenges, in being there humanitarianly when needed, and at the same time being there for their own understanding of how to shape the future generation of Scouting, but also to lead by examples in communities. So these are a few examples, but I mean, there's a lot that is happening already at national and local level, and that's really the place to exchange about it.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a phenomenal weekend that we can share some of those success stories and share best practices across NSOs so that we can multiply the efforts of Scouts around the world. I'm really excited to ask Simone our last question because I think it will tie really well all that we've discussed this morning, and particularly what the minister was mentioning about recognition. So, Simone, your organization is at the forefront of digital credentialing, gamifying game education, and digital badging. In our movement, we've seen some inspiring examples in this area, and we're eager to expand our capabilities. Can you share the key innovations and developments that you believe could significantly enhance the way we operate in our movement?
I'd love to. And I have good news. Tradition is sustainable innovation. Scout badges have inspired a set of emerging technologies, digital credentials being one, that has really enabled us to empower that recognition that is so present in all our policies. The Lisbon Recognition Convention set out a path forward for formal recognition, but increasingly recognition is being considered across the spectrum of formal and informal learning, formal and informal recognition. And while Scout badges, I mean, the early days of digital credentials and open badges as the technology enabling it were frowned upon by academia because they were saying, we don't need those thinking badges, the Scout badges. And what's happening right now, we have a slew of policies around the world that call for micro-credentials. You know, they're nothing but the recognition that non-formal learning and the things that were life experiences are worthwhile credentialing and recognizing. So there is this motion toward a notion of open recognition and reframing digital credentialing into a wider space of recognition technologies, where a lot of the non-formal activities are being now comprehensively brought into academic credentials or credentials for life. My call out here is to just really reframe, and by the way, reframing, I believe, is one of the skills for the future. This year in Europe is a year of skills, and even thinking about this pattern of complementary opposite, being able to reframe tension into flow, it will be key. So looking at recognition technologies, I would invite you to think about them as empowerment tech, a whole new category of technology called empowerment tech. This is where you think of digital credentials, badges, not just as collectors of skills, but as connectors of people. And I think the Scouting movement has really shown that through badges, the community is thriving and can have a different level of social interactions that is really something worthwhile sharing for life.
Thank you so much, Simone. And I think you said you also have a session later this weekend where you can hear even more about the work that they're leading in their foundation. So thank you. A heartfelt thank you to all of our esteemed panelists, Minister Acosta, Sarah Rita, and Simone Ravioli. Your perspectives have been truly phenomenal and will help us get off to a great start for this weekend of education. Before we leave, let's express our gratitude for their valuable contributions with a round of applause.